You're lying in bed, lights off, and instead of sleeping, you're the lead character in a scene that will never happen. Maybe you're giving a speech that leaves an entire room speechless. Maybe you're finally saying the thing you should have said 3 years ago to someone who doesn't deserve the mental rent they're still charging you. Maybe you've just discovered you have a secret talent that changes everything, and everyone who doubted you is watching. You run it, then rerun it. You tweak the dialogue. Someone says something slightly different and you go back, redo the whole scene, better response this time. And then at some point you fall asleep. If that's you, there are more of you than you probably think. The clinical term researchers use is paracosmic thinking, the creation of elaborate self-directed mental narratives. And what's actually going on there goes a lot deeper than just daydreaming. Psychologists have found that the scenarios people run before sleep tend to fall into two emotional buckets. Situations where something socially awkward or painful was left unresolved, and situations where the person finally gets what they felt they deserved. Respect, recognition, closure. That second one is worth slowing down on. When you replay a conversation where you finally say the perfect thing, you're not just being self-indulgent. Your brain is actually doing something it's built to do. The window right before sleep, researchers call it hypnagogia, is one of the only points in your entire day where the rational, logical part of your brain starts going quiet before your emotional side does. And in that small window, everything you push down during the day starts rising back up. The argument you let go, the compliment that never came, the version of yourself that was just a little braver, a little sharper, a little less afraid of taking up space. Where it gets psychologically fascinating in a way most people have never framed it. These scenarios are almost never random. They're specific. They're detailed. They have an emotional logic to them, a kind of narrative justice. And the reason for that has everything to do with how your brain processes identity. Humans are, at a fundamental level, story-making creatures. You don't just experience events, you automatically construct a narrative around them, complete with a protagonist, obstacles, and some implied resolution. Most of the time, daily life doesn't give you resolution. Conversations end awkwardly. Things go unsaid. People misunderstand you. And you let it go because it wasn't worth the energy. But your brain keeps the draft open. The pre-sleep imagination is where those drafts get edited. And the editing isn't delusional. It's actually a form of identity maintenance. You're rehearsing who you want to be, reclaiming moments where who you are didn't quite make it into the room. There's a study worth mentioning here. Jerome Singer, a psychologist at Yale who spent decades researching daydreaming and mental imagery, found that people who engage in positive, constructive fantasy, the kind with internal narrative and emotional resolution, tend to score higher on measures of emotional regulation and creative problem-solving. The scenarios aren't a sign that someone can't handle reality. In many cases, they're evidence that the person has a particularly sophisticated relationship with their inner life. That might be the first time being the main character in your own elaborate head movie has been described as emotionally sophisticated, but here we are. Okay, but let's talk about the darker version of this, because not every pre-closal scenario is triumphant. Some of them are arguments you lose. Some are rehearsals for worst-case scenarios. The breakup you're dreading, the confrontation you know is coming, the moment where everything goes wrong and you're trying to prepare. And some of them are just sad, quiet scenes of connection that you're not sure you'll ever actually have. A conversation with someone you've lost. A version of a relationship that didn't work out. Except in this one, it does. Those scenarios carry a completely different emotional texture, and they're worth taking seriously. When the imagination goes to grief or to longing before sleep, that's your nervous system doing something it genuinely needs to do. Sleep researchers have found that emotional memory consolidation happens heavily during REM, and the hypnagogic period that precedes it seems to function as a kind of preparation phase. Your mind's surfacing what it needs to process. The scenario you're playing out might feel like a symptom of being stuck. Sometimes it's actually the mechanism by which you eventually become unstuck. There's also a social dimension to this that almost nobody talks about. The people who tend to do this most intensely, the ones with sprawling internal worlds, detailed fictional versions of their own lives running parallel to their actual one, are often people who grew up in environments where their emotional reality wasn't fully acknowledged, where what they felt didn't quite match what they were allowed to express. The internal world becomes a place where that gap gets filled. You couldn't say what you felt at the dinner table, but you could say it in your head, in the car, in the dark before you fell asleep. And over time, that interior space became very, very developed. The imagination in those cases wasn't an escape from life. It was a continuation of it underground. And here's the thing about the comedic absurdity of all of this that I think gets overlooked. The scenarios are often genuinely cinematic, like full production value. There's a version of events where you walk into a room and something just shifts, and everyone can tell, or you casually reveal some piece of information that recontextualizes everything, and the person who underestimated you has to just sit with that. You've cast yourself, directed yourself, and written yourself lines that your actual mouth would never in a million years deliver with that kind of precision and timing. And the character you've written, they're kind of incredible. Actually, the question that sits underneath all of this, the one that I think most people feel but don't let themselves fully ask, is why the real version can't be a little more like that one. And the answer, if you want it, isn't flattering to modern life. Most of us are so busy managing how we come across, so trained to edit ourselves in real time, that the unfiltered, fully expressed version of who we are only comes out when no one's watching, when the lights are off, when the day is done, and there's no performance left to maintain. The person in your head, the one giving the speech, having the conversation, finally being understood, that person isn't fictional. They're you without the interference. So, what do you do with that? Some people, when they realize how vivid and emotionally coherent their inner world is, start getting curious about the gap between it and their outer one. And they start slowly, imperfectly, not all at once, experimenting with closing it, saying the thing, taking up the space, letting the version of themselves that only existed in the pre-sleep dark step out into actual daylight, even in small doses. It's uncomfortable. It goes wrong sometimes. The real version is messier, less edited, more awkward, but it's real. And real things compound in ways that imagined things, by definition, can't. The pre-sleep scenarios you run every night aren't something to be embarrassed about. They're a map. They show you with remarkable clarity what you actually want, not what you've settled for, not what you've convinced yourself is realistic, not what you perform for other people. What you want, who you wish you were allowed to be. The only question worth asking after you've watched that map long enough is whether you're ever going to try to live inside it. Tonight, when the lights go off and the scene starts playing, maybe notice what it's about. Really notice the want underneath is telling you something. It's been trying to tell you something for a while. If this video resonated with you, there's something in the description and pinned comment I think you'll find useful. It's a bundle of 7-day guides and planners built around what a lot of people watching are quietly dealing with. Clearing the mental backlog that keeps you up at night. Actually fixing your sleep rather than just thinking about fixing it. Rebuilding your focus and rebalancing your dopamine in a world that's constantly pulling it in 17 directions. Each guide gives you a specific daily action, not just more information to sit with. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments.